There are many speculations and rumors surrounding our team. There has been a lot of talk about possible trades, with the goal, of course, of changing the course of this team. So I'm going to tell you everything that's going on behind the scenes at the Atlanta Falcons and keep you well informed. And be sure to hit the like button if you keep the hope that we'll see the light at the end of this tunnel and see our team win a Super Bowl one day. All right, let's get to it because things are heating up fast. So, after weeks of speculation, Kirk Cousins has now emerged as a potential plan B for the New York Giants after they lost out on Matthew Stafford. Yeah, you heard that right. The Giants were seriously in the mix for Stafford, and some insiders thought he would end up in New York. But, as we know, Stafford ultimately chose to stick with the Rams, agreeing to take a little less than that massive $50 million per year deal he was rumored to be chasing. So where does that leave the Giants? Well, with their quarterback situation still in limbo. Daniel Jones was released mid-season, and now they need a new franchise QB. A lot of people expect them to go after Cam Ward from Miami or Shedeur Sanders from Colorado in the draft, but ESPN's Dan Graziano is throwing out another possibility, Kirk Cousins. Yes, Kirk Cousins, who signed that monster 4-year, $180 million contract with the Falcons just last offseason. But let's be real, his time in Atlanta hasn't exactly been smooth sailing. After losing the starting job to rookie Michael Penix Jr. in Week 14, the writing has been on the wall. Cousins finished the season with 3,508 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, and a career-high 16 interceptions. That 88.6 passer rating? The worst of his career in a season where he started 14 or more games. Not exactly the numbers you want from a QB making that kind of money. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. Graziano reports that the Falcons are expected to move on from Cousins soon, and if that happens, the Giants could potentially sign him for a team-friendly veteran minimum deal. That would allow them to draft a young quarterback to develop while Cousins serves as a bridge starter. But would that actually be a good move for the Giants? Let me know in the comments. All right. But we're not done yet. The Falcons are also making waves in the draft conversation. According to the Sporting News Vinny Iyer, Atlanta is eyeing a defensive lineman with their first-round pick. Now, most of us would assume the Falcons would go after an edge rusher first. That's been the biggest weakness for this team. But here's the thing, there's a chance we see some major changes along the defensive line this offseason, including the possible release of longtime fan favorite Grady Jarrett. I know, it's hard to imagine a Falcons defense without Jarrett. The guy has been the heart and soul of this unit for years. But the reality is, he's turning 32 shortly after the draft, and with the Falcons looking to clear cap space, he could be on the chopping block. If that happens, Atlanta might need to find his replacement sooner rather than later. And that's where Michigan defensive tackle Kenneth Grant comes in. Ayer's latest mock draft has the Falcons selecting Grant at number 15 overall. Standing at 6'4", 331 pounds, with 33.5-inch arms, Grant has all the physical tools to be an absolute monster at the next level. He didn't get to do workouts at the Combine due to a hamstring strain, but scouts are already buzzing about what he could do at Michigan's Pro Day on March 21st. NFL.com's Lance Zierlein says Grant has some inconsistencies in his game, but the raw power and athleticism are there. He put up 6.5 sacks in his college career, all in the last 2 seasons, and in 2024, he had 32 total tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 5 pass defenses, and 2 fumble recoveries to go along with 3 sacks. Not bad for a guy playing inside. Here's the deal, if the Falcons cut Jarrett, they save over $16 million against the cap. If they cut David Onyemata, that's another $8 million. Right now, the team is about $5.3 million over the cap, so some tough decisions are coming. Even if they decide to keep Jarrett, going after a defensive tackle early in the draft makes sense because they need to start thinking about the future of this defensive front. So, Falcons fans, we've got a lot to unpack here. Will Kirk Cousins end up in New York? Should the Falcons move on from Grady Jarrett and draft Kenneth Grant? Or should they prioritize an edge rusher instead? Let me know what you think in the comments. It looks like the Falcons are preparing to lose center Drew Dalman in free agency. This report comes from ESPN's Dan Graziano and Jeremy Fowler, who say that while the Falcons would love to keep him, they know there's a good chance he'll get a bigger paycheck elsewhere. And honestly, it's not hard to see why. Dalman has quietly become one of the best centers in the league, especially in the run game. He's hitting free agency at the perfect time, and teams are willing to pay big money for a guy like him. NFL insider Greg Rosenthal has even said that Dalman could get around $20 million per year. Yes, you heard that right, $20 million a year for a center. That kind of number makes it tough for the Falcons to compete, especially with other positions needing attention. So, what's the plan if Dalman walks? Well, the Falcons seem to be ready to turn to Ryan Neuzil. He stepped in last season when Dalman missed time due to injury, and he did a solid job. Neuzil is a restricted free agent, which means Atlanta can bring him back much more easily and at a much lower cost than trying to match Dalman's potential contract offers. This move makes a lot of sense. The Falcons are already over the salary cap by about $5.3 million, according to Spotrac, and they have to make smart financial decisions. If Dalman gets a massive deal elsewhere, the Falcons will likely invest that money into other areas of need, particularly the defense, where they're already looking to make major upgrades. Speaking of big decisions, there's another interesting move that could impact the Falcons' future. The team is expected to release some key defensive linemen, including longtime fan favorite Grady Jarrett. Jarrett has been the heart and soul of this defense for years, but at 32 years old and with a cap hit north of $16 million, the Falcons could decide to move on. If they do, they'll need a replacement, and the latest mock drafts have them targeting Michigan defensive tackle Kenneth Grant at number 15 overall. Grant is a beast. He's 6 feet 4 inches, 331 pounds, and has insane athleticism for his size. He didn't get to showcase his skills at the NFL Combine due to a hamstring injury, but scouts are excited to see him at Michigan's Pro Day on March 21st. He's considered a top 3 defensive tackle in the 2025 draft class and could be exactly what the Falcons need to rebuild their defensive front. If Atlanta moves on from both Jarrett and fellow defensive lineman David Onyemata, they'll have plenty of cap space to work with, and adding a young, dominant DT like Grant could be a game-changer. Now, let's switch gears for a second and talk about an under-the-radar move that has been paying off for another Atlanta team, the Braves. I know we're here for Falcons news, but trust me, this one's interesting. Last offseason, Braves GM Alex Anthopoulos made a trade that had a lot of people scratching their heads at the time. He sent a group of young prospects, including fan favorite Michael Soroka, to the White Sox for Aaron Bummer, a reliever who was coming off a rough season. But guess what? That trade is now looking like one of the best moves of his tenure. Bummer bounced back in a big way, becoming one of Atlanta's most reliable bullpen arms with a 3.14 ERA. Meanwhile, the players Atlanta traded away haven't done much for Chicago. Just another example of how smart roster moves can make all the difference. And that's exactly what the Falcons need to do this offseason, make smart, strategic moves that set them up for success. Losing Dalman will hurt, no doubt about it. But if the Falcons can reinvest in the defense and make the right picks in the draft, they'll be in great shape moving forward. So now, I want to hear from you, Falcons fans. What do you think about losing Dalman? Do you trust Ryan Neuzil to step up and take over? And how do you feel about possibly drafting Kenneth Grant to rebuild the defensive line? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Falcons news. Go Falcons!